Where do we begin? You and I. I am speaking to you from somewhere deep inside the space of your mind, from within the realms of your imagination, the primordial space or place out of which each of us emerge. In this vast ocean of existence, how do each of us find our identity? Often, it's stories which help us to find a path to who we are and who we become. There's a mystical and a mythical side to storytelling. We can absorb stories almost as if they were in our DNA. Our beliefs and our values are embedded inside of our stories. Flip open a book or flick on a screen, and you are met with a reflection of who we think we are. Stories are the chatter of humanity, talking to itself about itself. We define and design ourselves and our culture through the stories we tell. Stories allow us to enter the minds and lives of others, experiencing the world from their perspective. When we enter the world of a story, it's a form of meditation. Characters that emerge from pages, stages, and screens can become models for us to live by. Where do we begin to tell the story about all stories? As our understanding of our world and culture changes, our stories also change. I'm investigating what it means to tell and create all stories. In this insider's view of story, we look behind the scenes as we meet some of the various makers and creators of stories. What was it that attracted you to move from the idea of becoming a writer to becoming an editor and going into publishing?
I think it's basically just who I am and what I'm suited to. So as soon as I was practicing both at once, I just sort of knew, I was like, the editing is for me. What completely excited me was the editing side of things. I just obsessively love it. What drew me to the world of publishing was books, love of books, which drew me to a love of writing, which led me to do the professional writing and editing diploma. I basically signed up interested in the writing side, and it never occurred to me that editing existed until I sat through my first editing class. I had a bit of an epiphany and was like, oh my God, editors, what are editors? I've never thought about this. And it just became obvious that's what I wanted to do.
Prior to that, you were more interested in becoming a writer.
Yeah, I was just interested in books, full stop. I just love reading. I love books. And I guess because of what they teach you at school, you do creative writing. There was no talk about publishing or editing. It just didn't really come up for me until I did the course. So I sort of automatically focused on the writing side of things.
What is it that excites you about editing? Can you explain that?
I think people imagine you come to work and get out your red pen and you just read manuscripts all day and correct them, which is not at all true. There's partly you do that, but there's basically production editing, and I like to call it editing. It's a technical term. And different publishing houses work in different ways. So not everyone works the way we do, but here in the Melbourne office of Allen & Unwin, we do both ourselves in-house, which is really something that I enjoy.
Is that taking a manuscript and then deciding how that's actually to go into a book and then how that gets to its market?
It's basically once it's been decided that you're going to publish a book, the publisher will hand it over to the editor and say, besides editing the content of the book, they'll also say make the book. So you need to brief the cover, and you need to brief the text design, and you've got to work with the designer and the typesetter and the author. There's a huge aspect of author care, we call it, which is probably one of my favourite parts of the job. The editor's in the middle like this and the author's behind you, and to make a book you have to deal with a whole lot of different people, and everyone comes through you. So you're the buffer for the author, and so you're organising everything and getting the feedback back and putting it into diplomatic, nice terms, and then passing it on to the author and consulting with the publisher and marketing and making sure everyone's happy. So you're like a go-between So there's a lot of, you need to be a very nurturing person, I think, which I like. So there's a lot of taking care of people and looking after their interests and, you know, being gentle and cushioning things. And you need to have quite a good understanding of how hard it is for someone to give you their baby. And you need to have a lot of respect for the fact that it's their work, not yours, and that, you know, it's a big deal for them that you're suggesting changes, that sort of thing.
Do you feel like you're acting as the first reader in that sense when you actually look at that material and say, this is not working?
Yeah. I mean, you know that the author feels really nervous when they send in a manuscript or when they get an edit back, but the editors actually get really nervous when they give a big edit to the author, because you just think, I mean, this is our work, you know, and you're just thinking, well, who the hell am I to tell you what to do with your book? There is no right answer. It's massively subjective. So
what makes you assured after the number of years you've been working at?
It's never a case of this is wrong and I'm right and you need to do this particularly or else it won't work. It's all I really think of myself as an editor is the ideal reader. So, I mean, you really are the ideal reader for the author. You are the person who will soak in every word, like look at it when you get to the copy editing stage, every single line, you're really thinking about it and what it means and does it work and could it be better, and giving someone feedback line by line on their work. There's a whole lot of different aspects involved. I'm quite particular, quite obsessive compulsive, and that goes well if you're an editor. To be a good editor, I think it's not like I must be able to list off every rule of grammar and its proper name off the top of my head. It's more something at the back of your mind, just intuitively as you first read a book going, there's something not quite right here. Like you'll do a read and you'll go through and you'll have that feeling about certain parts and maybe mark those bits of the manuscript, and then later you'll go back and stare at them closely until you work out technically what's going on that's caused that problem. And then you need to be able to clearly convey that to the author, get across clearly why. You can't just say this doesn't work. You need to be able to explain why you think it doesn't work.
This is the story behind all stories.
Internationally, publishers are aware of what Australians are publishing. And it's not like, oh, we're coming to you because we want a book about koalas.
There's the writing and then there's the story, or do you not separate the two?
Say I'm working on a novel by an author we've worked with before. I know their writing. I know what they can do. I've seen their drafts before and I know how they got that draft into this amazing finished form. I know they can do that. We're not going to spend heaps of time at the structural stage focusing on, well, this writing isn't good enough yet, because they know it's not good enough. They've trusted us with a draft.
Right.
It's more, let's get the bones of the story into place before you spend all that time honing. Like, I just think of them polishing all their sentences, because they really do. Like, writers spend so much time getting every word right. But if you do that at the start, which does happen, especially if you're working with a first-time author and they've really got a book as far as they can before they submit it. They've spent all this time perfecting everything, and then you come in and say, oh, but unfortunately it doesn't hang together structurally, so can you move this and change this? And then they just have to do it all again. So, yeah, you probably, I would say, are focusing more on the plot structurally, and then once you get into the copy edit, that's where you zoom in, and you need to be quite particular, have a particular mind to be able to want to be a copy editor, because you've got to have a lot of patience and a lot of attention to detail. But at that point, you start to really, really look at the writing.
Is that because you're actually looking at the flow of the writing so that it's not disturbing to the reader?
I find myself saying a lot to authors when I'm trying to explain why I'm suggesting little changes in a copy edit. If something's off, it throws you, well, for me, it throws me out of the story. So I'm there, I'm suspended disbelief. I'm in the story, I'm loving it. I'm like, this is great. And then all of a sudden it will be such a small detail. It might just be, you know, this change might sound ridiculous if you don't explain why, but suddenly something or other will happen that makes you stop believing that it's real, and it hurls you out.
You get some understanding that Americans or the British look to you as a publishing house to see what Australian stories are coming through.
Australians do have quite a good reputation for writing really strong YA and not censoring things, being a bit fearless, being a bit brave, pushing the boundaries. And that, I mean, that's something that I think Allen and Unwin is known for as well and respected for. So I think out in the world, you know, internationally, publishers are aware of what Australians are publishing, in YA at least, I'm sure in other areas too. And yeah, I think they do come to us for that. And it's not like, oh, we're coming to you because we want a book about koalas. It's more, this sense of being brave, publishing bravely. Whereas you could argue, and this is certainly a generalisation, but, you know, in America, say with picture books, there are certain things where you can't push past it or people just won't take it. Like all the gatekeepers will just reject the book, and it's ridiculous things. It's like you can't have a nude person at all in a picture book that will go out in America, and we think, why? You know, but to them it's a commercial thing because they're like, yeah, I agree with you. The publishers agree with us. It's not like they're all prudes, but they say, well, if we publish this book, it's going to tank, so we can't do it. So, yeah, we don't really have that going on here. I don't think we're quite as conservative.
But within this house that you work in daily, weekly, do you have the sense that you are something of the keepers of the stories?
Yes, I do. The word gatekeeper gets used a lot, talking about these sorts of things. And I think publishers aren't the only gatekeepers, but especially for books for kids and teenagers, I guess the publishers in a way are the first, and the agents are the first gatekeepers, because you're filtering, you know, you get all these submissions coming in and you're the ones who have to decide, well, we're going to do these ones. So,
but if we take the word gate out, because gate seems to be a block, if we just say the keepers of the story,
yeah, that sounds better.
It does seem to be about bringing in and finding and taking out to the world the stories that you believe the world needs. And
yeah, and I think that's, I mean, to me, that's so important. And the fact that I'm privileged enough to be involved in that process means a great deal to me. And the fact that I work somewhere, I quite deliberately work where I work because I have such respect for the way we publish here. And yeah, we're not just publishing a book because, oh, that's going to make money, quick, publish it. It's all about getting those really best, brave stories out into the world. So yeah, I think there's definitely an element of, I guess, being the keepers and also the filter. I think with the digital, you know, self-publishing, particularly in ebook form, there's this whole new raft of publishing that's opened up of people just doing their own. And I'm really interested in that because, I mean, I know people are buying it, but there's no filter. And so as someone who read the submissions for 5 years and knows what the unfiltered landscape looks like, I just think, it's not what I want, actually. I want someone there filtering and giving me the absolute best and making it as good as it can be. I don't really just want the whole open gate here, have it all, you know. So to me, it's important to filter. Basically, everything someone writes is informed by their experiences. So you're getting their experience in what you're reading. And I think pretty much books are about what it's like to be alive and, you know, just looking at life.
You think that's kind of a vicarious experience of existence that you're getting out of another book?
Yeah, I do. And it's just getting someone else's take on the world, which I find hugely
illuminating,
yes.
Fascinating,
yes. Like an aspirational thing, particularly when I was little. Like, say, I loved, this is a mix of TV and books. I loved Pippi Longstocking, deeply admired her. And I also loved Punky Brewster on TV. Just, you cannot understand how much I loved Punky Brewster. I just, with all my heart. So that was really an aspirational thing in my formative years of wanting to be like these girls. I think that's hugely important.
Do you know what it was about Punky that you...
Oh, Punky. Punky. Partly it was her name. And it was just, I just thought she was so cool. You know, she wore different coloured socks and she had a bandana tied around her knee. Why? And she had this cool dog and she was an orphan. And I don't know, it was just, she just deeply appealed to me and I just wanted to be like her. And
there's a certain maverick element in her character that you warmed to.
I think so, yeah. I just thought she was really cool and just aspired to be like her. And I think that's a normal part of being a person. You're always aspiring to be like someone or other who you admire. And
But why do you think we take it from stories and not from people around us?
I think people take it from, I mean, some people turn to the royal family, and other people it's celebs, and other people it's movie stars, and well, celebs, same thing. But for me, it's books. So I think it probably depends a bit on your personal taste and where you turn for your narrative.
But when there's a character that's only there, exists in print.
To me, those characters are completely real, and yeah, there is a character in a book that I really, really love. One of my favourite books is far more real to me personally than, you know, some person in a magazine. Someone
said to us recently they almost wanted to spend more time with the characters that existed in the pages of the books they were reading than they did the people they were meeting.
Yeah, well, that's true. I think a lot of people have that feeling. I mean, I like both, happily for me. I really enjoy real life and real people as well.
This is the story behind all stories.
A novel or a series of books that's good, it's like, oh my God, I get to just live in this for ages.
Children's books and young adult, does that come with certain responsibility?
Yes, I think it definitely comes with responsibilities, but maybe not the way the general public sometimes imagines. Like you get a lot of unsolicited submissions. I used to read the submissions for a number of years before I was an editor, which was a really, really good experience, just seeing everything and the solicited ones, so seeing all the books that came through the door and what we chose to publish and what we didn't. And so many people, for example, with picture books just think, you know, this is my chance to teach small children a moral, and that's not when you say you have a responsibility, that's not what we're talking about. It's not like, let's teach the youth of today to be, you know, upstanding citizens. It's not like that. But I mean, you certainly have to have in your mind that this book is for a little kid or this book is for a teenager, and, you know, how far do you want to push contentious content, I suppose. I just think personally, we're not big on censorship, and we're pretty open in what we publish, and I think there's a big risk of underestimating kids and teenagers, which good publishers don't do. But I do think being gratuitous is not great, personally. So that's the sort of thing I would be looking out for is, you know, like you can have some really hard, terrible subject matter in a book, as long as there's a reason for it and there's a point, not just because it's like, I want to sell heaps of copies of a book, you know, Game of Thrones style. Let's just make it as shocking as possible. I mean, I like Game of Thrones, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that sort of story is necessarily what you want to be doing for teenagers.
Are there particular kind of stories that are being snapped up by the public at the moment that you're aware of? And do you have to be aware of where the market is at the moment for certain kind of stories?
I think publishers definitely need to be aware of, what's selling at the moment. And I mean, when you get down to it, publishing is a business, so you do have to think about whether or not a book is going to sell. Obviously, it's always a gamble and you can't really guess. And a lot of books don't make money. A lot of books lose money. There's a bit of the 80-20 rule, which is that 20% of the books make 80% of the profit, which is probably about right. But you do need to be aware of the marketplace, I guess.
The outside world is changing. It's become more commercial material. Do you think that has affected publishing over the last 5 to 8 years?
Yes. I think huge international blockbuster kids and YA books have certainly had a massive effect on everything. Like, you know, Harry Potter had a huge effect. And I think that's a relatively new thing for something to be that huge across the whole world. And then, of course, that has an influence on everything because, you know, like it's influenced generations of readers, and publishers, of course, want to publish other stuff that's like that because it made so much money. Maybe globalisation is having this filter down effect on the way publishing operates. And certainly digital publishing is very topical right now, and, you know, lots of things are changing. Basically, though, it's still a book with ebooks. It's still a book, and you're still telling a story and making a package and getting the story to the reader in one way or another. So it's not that different.
But do you think that the digital landscape itself, where younger people can access stories in all sorts of forms in their pockets now?
I think TV has changed completely. I mean, I feel like we're in this golden age of TV, and I'm loving it because I'm all about the story, and it's so satisfying to just be able to get something fantastic all at once and just, you know, watch it whenever you want. And it's giving you that freedom you've always had with books, that I want this and I want it now and I'm going to read the whole thing and not go to bed till 3 a.m. That's how I operate. So I've been enjoying TV a lot more than I used to because there are no ads and it's not on at 9:45 on a Thursday. So yeah, I'm enjoying the streaming experience.
So serialisation of story is coming back via what we would have called the TV medium, but it's not. It's a download medium.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that affecting publishing?
It seems like more people are watching TV series in depth, more TV series than they used to. Possibly less just, you know, reality TV and whatever's on, like. And I do wonder if, like, once you get that taste for, it's so satisfying because you can be in that world for so long. And that's why books used to be more satisfying than, say, a movie, because the movie you get this beautiful glimpse and it stands alone and that's great. And I really enjoy that too. But a novel or a series of books that's good, it's like, oh my God, I get to just live in this for ages. And to me, that's what TV is now offering, which I really love and I'm a complete sucker for. So I do wonder if people getting more used to that maybe want longer books, but I don't know if this is an idle thought I wondered about. I don't know if there's any empirical evidence for that.
Or that print goes to series so that we have a series of books.
Yeah, like maybe readers who are getting really used to watching TV series, maybe they want series for their books too because they want it to last longer. I don't know if we necessarily publish more series than we did before. We publish a broad range, so lots of standalone as well.
Do you think we're as aware as we might be in the contemporary world how important stories are in our life? They've proliferated. We call it entertainment. They're more than just that for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's certain books and story as a whole is certainly more to me than just entertainment, but they're also, entertainment is a big factor in it for me too. I read for pleasure. I don't sit down to read a book going, I'm going to learn more about life now. You know, that all happens naturally and subconsciously and behind the scenes. It's not a conscious thing, but you consciously think, oh, I'd like to do something relaxing now, and so you read a book. So
it is a diversion, but if I go back to your TV series that you spend hours watching,
yes,
that diversion is informative.
Yes. And I mean, personally, I do find reading a book more informative than watching TV because it's more active a process. So I really do think that reading a book is more active than watching TV, and so you ultimately probably engaging more with the content, getting more out of it, you know, below the surface. But I still enjoy a good TV series and watch quite a lot of it. So,
what do you think a reader is doing when they're reading a story?
For me, if I'm reading a book, I'm sort of sitting quietly with myself, like as I do it. Whereas if I'm watching TV, I've lost myself. I've gone out into it. It's really hard to put into words, but to me, it's a completely different experience. And if I don't do enough reading, if I only watch TV, I start to feel unwholesome.
That was a very unique perception. Well done. Thank you. To learn more about the program, leave a comment and stay in touch. Connect with our Facebook page.